So how can you build the perfect team for Varka, and what does he need on a team? His teams in general can be a little complicated, but hopefully in this video I'll explain all of his needs and team requirements, and then I'll give you some team examples for you to understand how you can build your own best Varka team. Before we continue that though, if you're trying to get Varka or any of his teammates, I would recommend getting Genesis crystals from LDshop.gg. LDshop is a cheap, fast, and safe game top-up website that offers top-ups for many games, including Genshin Impact. As you guys can see here, these are the offers they have for Genshin, and all of them are cheaper than the official game store, up to 30% cheaper. For example, you can see that 3,280 Genesis crystals offer. It costs $50 on the official game store, but it only costs $37.39 on LDshop. That's $12.61 or more than 25% saved just by using LDshop. They also have many other things like bundles, character outfits, Welkins, and stuff like that. When you want to buy, you just want to click on the offer you want to choose. For example, I'm going to buy the 300 Genesis crystals offer. You just need to enter your server region and user ID. Obviously, make sure they're right. Then you just want to click on top up, choose your payment method, enter your details, and pay. And shortly after that, you're just going to get the Genesis crystals on your account. And right now, if you use my link, you can get a 15% off coupon, also an extra 5% off. That can save you up to $50. They also have more cool things on the website. For example, if you spend more than $80 in a month, you can win a free Welkin. Just go check it out yourself. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment and top up now. Alright, so first of all, starting off with his team requirements. Varka's team requirements mainly come from his passives only, honestly. The first one comes from Witch's Eve Right, Dawn's Return. It's the second part of the passive that's going to be super important, and it's going to be his Hex Ray buff. So when you have 2 Hex Rays on your team, when you hit opponents with normal attacks, it's just going to lower the cooldown of your special skill, which is super important. That's going to be one of the main parts of your damage, and the cooldown is going to be very large. So you definitely want to lower it when you do your normal attacks in between, and without it, he's basically just not going to function right. So that's going to be a very important passive for sure, and you definitely want to activate it, and you do that by putting another Hexray teammate on your team. That means one of those 8 characters need to exist on your team for sure. His other 2 requirements are going to come from his second passive, Dawn Winds March. So basically it requires you to have Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo characters in the party, obviously, but then also it's going to allow your special elemental skill and your special charge attack to deal increased damage. So it's going to have 2 tiers basically. The first tier is going to unlock by you having either 2 Anemos or 2 characters of the same elements that are Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo. In that case, your special skill is going to deal 140% of its original damage, and that's going to be pretty good. But if you have both, if you have 2 Anemos and then 2 characters of the same elements that are Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo, in that case, your special skill is going to deal 220% of its original damage, which is a super huge increase, and you definitely want to make sure that's activated. So from this passive, you're basically required to have a second Anemo on your team, and then 2 characters of the same elements that are Hydro, Electro, Pyro, or Cryo. So his 2 passives alone are going to limit your teams by a lot. Basically, his team skeleton is just going to be Varka, a second Anemo, and then 2 characters from the same elements, with one of the 3 teammates as a Hexray character. This is basically what you need for Varka, and then also obviously his main DPS, so preferably you'd want characters who can buff his attack, give him damage bonus, you'd want sustains and stuff like that, just the usual stuff that comes with any main DPS. None of them are going to be super necessary, so, you know, you can miss one of them, but generally you want to make sure you have characters that are just going to help Varka in general survive and deal more damage. So yeah, that's basically it for his team requirements. Now moving on to his team comps and team examples. When you see those requirements, honestly, you might think he's going to be a little too restricted maybe because you're locked within like a second element, another Hexray and stuff like that. But honestly, he's one of the most versatile characters in the game. His ability to be able to turn into like a Pyro DPS, Electro DPS, Cryo, or just whatever is going to open up a lot of teams for him, honestly. So his teams, contrary to what it might look like, are not restricted at all. And you're going to see that now. So starting off with his team examples, in general, right now, his best teams are going to be Pyro teams. And honestly, that's mainly just because of Durin. Durin just being there and giving you that Pyro and Anemo resistance shred, and also dealing very good amounts of damage, is just going to up the DPS for a lot of Pyro teams a lot. So yeah, his best premium team, like this is the best team you can make for Varka, at least for right now, is going to consist of Varka, Venti, Durin, and then Bennett. So this is going to be the perfect team for Varka right now. In this team, he's just going to be a Pyro DPS basically, and then all of the characters are going to be fulfilling his requirements and supporting him by a lot. First of all, Venti is just going to provide you with the Anemo resonance. He's going to provide you with the crowd control, and he can also deal those Pyro inflicted swirls that can also activate Varka's passive. So it's going to be a pretty good and consistent choice for Varka. Generally, Venti is going to be a little replaceable by multiple Anemos. You can replace him with someone like Sucrose, for example, which is also another Hexray character. Faruzan can be a good replacement too. Kazuha can be a good replacement. Lanian can also be a pretty interesting replacement because he can also work as like a sustain. So yeah, Venti is going to be pretty replaceable, but he's definitely the best in slot for the Anemo slot in your team. Just going to be able to deal good amounts of damage off his own with the crowd control and stuff like that. He's going to have pretty good synergy with Varka. Durin, as I said before, is going to be the main thing about this team, honestly. Just his massive resistance shred is going to make the team deal significant amounts of damage, both Pyro and Anemo. And he's also going to be dealing his own damage, and he's also going to be a Hex Ray character, which is going to be more important if you're not using Venti to activate the Hex Ray buff. Bennett is just Bennett, honestly. Is going to be your second Pyro. He's going to be sustaining your team, and he's also going to be providing you with his like massive attack buffs. And Varka is going to scale pretty well with attack. Also, the Pyro Resonance is more attack, which is pretty good. So yeah, this is going to be the perfect team for Varka. In general, if you have those teammates, then you should definitely just use them with Varka and not think about anything else. At least if you want to use him as a Pyro main DPS. If you still want to use him as a Pyro DPS and you don't have those teammates, then you definitely have other variations that you can use. They're not going to be as good, but there are a lot of substitute characters that can, you know, fulfill those teams. Just make sure you have the requirements satisfied and your team can work. So for example, you can use a team as like say Varka, and then let's say Sucrose for example, and then let's say Ling, and then let's say Bennett. That's also going to be a pretty decent team where Varka is a Pyro main DPS. Sucrose is going to be fulfilling the second Anemo and the Hex Ray buff, and then you have your two Pyros. Ling is going to be the sub DPS here. He's not really going to be buffing you a lot, but it's still fine. And then Bennett is just Bennett buffing you. But yeah, there's just a lot of variations that you can use. Just make sure you have the conditions fulfilled and you're going to be good usually most of the time. Obviously, the damage is not going to be as good as his perfect team, but it's still definitely going to be doable. But yeah, his superior team is just going to be him, Durin, Venti, and Bennett. Especially Durin is going to be like heavily recommended to be played with Varka if you have him. Without him, the team's damage is going to fall quite a bit. But yeah, obviously you can also play him with other elements. So you can play him as a Cryo main DPS, for example, and you can use a team as in like Varka as your Cryo main DPS, and then Venti as a second Anemo and the Hex Ray character. And then you can use just the normal Cryo base body, which is just Shenhe and Escoffier. Those are the best Cryo buffers we have in the game right now. So with him being a Cryo main DPS, obviously he can heavily benefit from their buffs and resistance shreds and stuff like that. And this team is again going to fulfill all of his conditions. So it's going to be a decent team too, honestly. Now you can play him as an Electro main DPS, for example. So again, you can use like Varka and then Venti or Sucrose as a second Anemo and also the Hex Ray character. And then you can use Fischl or Sorrow, for example. And then let's say Yansan as a second Electro. It's probably going to be a necessary slot if you want to play him as an Electro main DPS, honestly. Because she's going to be providing a lot. Her buffs are going to be pretty important for Electro main DPSs. So yeah, in this team, he's going to be an Electro main DPS. Again, all of the conditions are fulfilled. And this team is going to be a pretty decent team for him too. And then finally, you can use him as a Hydro main DPS too. As I said before, his versatility is going to be crazy. So you can just, again, use the base score, which is Varka and then Venti or Sucrose to fulfill the Hex Ray slot. And then you can use two Hydros, for example. You can go for Fiorina, probably the best option in those teams, just because of her massive buffs. And then for the second Hydro, you can play basically anyone. So you can go something like Yellen as just a second sub DPS that can have extra damage. You can use Mona, especially if you're not using a Hex Ray as a second Anemo. Then Mona can fulfill the Hex Ray slot too, which is going to be pretty good, especially if you have her constellations. She's going to be super good teammates for him. You can use Sijuin, for example, as your sustain. The second slot in those teams is going to be pretty versatile. Just make sure you use Fiorina if you have her, because her buffs are going to be pretty important and massive. Other than that, you can use any second Anemo to fulfill your teams depending on your needs. But yeah, those teams are going to be pretty decent too, for sure. So those are his main teams. There is a good team for him technically that you can play, but this is not really like a conventional team, and it's not even like a Varka team in my opinion. It's just a wheelchair with Inefa and Columbina, which you can do with basically any character in the game right now. So you can play like Varka, for example, and then like Sucrose, Inefa, and Columbina. This team is going to deal decent damage, but Columbina and Inefa are going to be the main damage dealers in this team. Varka is not really going to have a good role because the team is just not built for him specifically. So if you want to wheelchair him, then you can with this team, and it's going to be a decent team for him, honestly. It's quite good, but Varka is just not going to be pretty important in this team at all. But yeah, as I said before, you can use him as Pyro DPS, a Cryo DPS, Electro, or Hydro. Right now, I'd say Pyro teams are probably going to be the better option right now. His best teams are just going to be Pyro teams, mainly because of Durin, as I explained before. But even without Durin, Pyro teams are still going to be a little better because of Bennett and the Pyro Resonance and stuff like that. They're just going to be a little better than most teams. I'd say after that, probably Hydro teams are going to be good, and then Cryo and Electro are going to be sort of like his worst teams, but they're also going to be decent and usable, probably around like 70k DPS DPS or something around that, which is kind of low for today's standards, but you can probably clear the Abyss and stuff like that with it. So if you still want to use him as like a Cryo or Electro DPS, that's definitely possible too for sure. But yeah, again, you have his team conditions, you can just fulfill them and then use whatever team you want. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. Tell me what teams you're going to be using with your Varka. See you guys in the next video. Peace.